in my lifetime, never come across this before, and we've got to do our best and live with it. So what do we know? We know that COVID rules change all the time. We know that they are different in other home nations now, and we also know the new tiered system makes it even more complicated in different parts of the country, with some regions in tier 1, tier 2 and tier 3 lockdown. If there is a silver lining to that, it's the fact that we do have some Taekwondo activity allowed to take place. Not the level of activity we would all like, but we all have to appreciate what, the damage that the virus is doing at the moment, and work within the guidelines and the rules that are out there. There are some sports, like our colleagues in judo and wrestling, who, to be frank, have very little they can do. Taekwondo, we're back on phase 1, which is return to basic training, class-based training, where we all have to stay 2 meters apart unless we're within the same household, of course. And I know a lot of clubs have had problems with that, and the frustration that they can't go to phase 2, where we can use handheld pads and start doing a little bit more closer work. But it is what it is. We are still stuck on phase 1, and we are pushing government where we can, and Department of Culture, Media and Sport to basically let us move to other phases. But the virus has got other ideas, and government, especially the Westminster government and the local councils, are, if anything, looking to restrict even more activity than we're presently on. But like I say, that if there is a silver lining, it's that we can operate under phase 1 activity, where we can basically do, class-based stuff, and it is what it is, and it's likely to be that way until Christmas, to be honest. We're going to cover later on what the government guidelines are. James is going to run through those for each of the home nations, and we can open the floor up to some questions. If you do have questions today, we are going to use the chat function, and if you've got any questions, throw them on there. We'll try and answer as many as we can during the course of this coaches conference, but we'll get into that a little bit later. First thing is, I just want to introduce and thank Chris Wood, who's going to just talk about how you survive in the new normal, how we operate with a mixed model of online training, try and help you get set up. If you haven't considered online training, how you can try and look at that as a potential model if things do get worse. There are some areas like Wales, as an example, that is in a full lockdown at the moment, and I know a lot of you have a lot of problems getting back into venues, even though you want to get back as a club. The leisure centre that you're hiring, or the community venue, or the schools, they're even worse. A lot of these places are just not letting people in at all. So if you find yourself in that type of group, it may be time again to think about looking at doing an online type class, or at least keeping in touch with your members using online facilities. Zoom and Teams and all of these other types of things are, as I said earlier at the beginning, they're the new normal now. And whether or not you can have a mixed model where you're delivering some core training using Zoom. And then if you are managing to get even a small amount of in-person time with your students, you use that time to do feedback and assessment and that kind of thing. I know a lot of clubs have used that model extremely well. So, are you there, Chris? Are you around? And we can.
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
We can. Yeah, I'll hand over to you, and if you could just share your experience of what happened in March and April and May. When we were in the dark days of wave number 1 of this virus, and how you've managed to operate and how you've used online training and how that's mixed, with when you've then been allowed back, which I think that was mid-July, wasn't it, when they started to allow facilities back. So just like to thank you,
yeah.
And I'll hand over to you, and thank you very much.
Okay. No worries. Hi guys. So my name's Chris from Creative Ways Taekwondo. I did something like this early on back in like April or May, I think, but in a bit more depth and detail of what we done at Creative Ways Taekwondo, and kind of used a different system to have like overlays and videos and things like that playing over, it's great and it works really, really well. However, it is quite technical minded. So James has asked me just to come on and just basically give you an introduction of what we're currently doing. So as you can see, our views who are open basically just for us. There's no one else using the venue currently, so we're allowed to leave our mats down, which has been really fantastic. It's been, otherwise I don't think we'd have time to kind of get the mats out every session, put them away, and we're doing it in such a way, you can see behind me that we've got individual spaces and areas for people. So we've got 3x3 meter sections, and within the hall we've got 10 areas that are all pre-booked for the sessions. So everyone's on, initially we were using like a Google form to book out the sessions on a weekly basis, whereas now we've moved to a different system that's a paid for system, but is working really, really well, where they can check what they've booked and they can cancel it and do all that kind of good stuff, which is really helpful. So yeah, it's booking only at the minute, and we're doing a mixture still of Zoom and in-person sessions. So in-person sessions
Your video's jumping a wee bit, Chris.
between. Oh, okay. It's coming up telling my internet's not very good. Sorry, guys. Can you hear me right now?
Yeah, can hear you fine most of it. The odd time it just does we jump.
Okay, sorry. So yeah, so we're doing 60 in-person sessions a week, basically. So there's enough spots for 60, and because the venue's not, it's large enough, but it's not massive. We're not allowing spectators within the hall. So on those days that we're doing in person, we're streaming it live on our Facebook members area, so that the parents can still see what's going on in the session. So that seems to be working really well. And all the people that are happy to follow along on a Facebook Live, are then obviously, if they didn't get to book on whichever session that we're doing, it's almost like a little bit of a hybrid system to a degree, where we're doing some in-person stuff, and then obviously we're doing online at the same time. As it currently stands, we've just got the one Zoom session a week that's dedicated to Zoom that we do on a Tuesday night, and potentially looking at increasing that, because there's still getting quite a lot of people that are attending that. And obviously we've got plans in place that if our area, so Milton Keynes, goes into a higher tier and we're told that we can't carry on anymore, then we've got plans just to revert straight back to Zoom. It's obviously been really, really good having people back at lessons. We're on week 4 of back in the hall, back in doing proper sessions, which is really, really good. However, it is very much kind of business as usual, as in the sessions are very similar. It's still pretty much what we were doing on Zoom is now what we're doing at the hall, but obviously with a little bit more kind of structured feedback and angle on TV is obviously massively helpful. We've also not had everyone back. So some of the people that were doing the Zoom sessions haven't attended yet the in-person sessions, more just through kind of fears and worries, if you like, even though we've kind of got all of the safety precautions in place. But everyone's different, and everyone's kind of taking this in kind of a different way, if that makes sense. So it's kind of understandable that not everyone is going to attend. And that's why we're kind of still running that Zoom session as well, because they're still attending those Zoom sessions. Lesson plan wise, I found that this was the hardest thing, starting off with when kind of lockdown hit. Our lesson plans kind of prior to this were probably 50%, maybe 60% pad work and sparring, and then the rest all kind of technical syllabus work, say self-defense. Obviously, to iron and Zoom, the pad work side of things realistically kind of fell off a cliff, no sparring. And obviously if you've got siblings and all the rest of it, that's fine. However, siblings being siblings, brothers and sisters, sometimes they don't get on at the best of times anyway, so trying to get them to hold pads for each other's always a bit of a challenge, let's say. Sometimes you've got massive age gaps as well, so you might have like a parent and a child that are training together. So it's fine for the kind of parent to hold pads, but not necessarily for the child, and it's just not ideal. And obviously we're not in an ideal situation, so it is what it is. So back in, I think probably May or June, I kind of sat down and worked out a 12-week syllabus for full Zoom, and we're now on a second rotation of that. And then once that first rotation of that 12 weeks finished, I kind of went in and changed a few, get a bit repetitive, kind of what worked, what didn't work, and then updated it as we go along, really. So that's helped massively, because it's just kind of given a massive amount of structure to the lessons. So we basically cover between 4 and 5 things each session, and it's about 4 to 5 minutes on each area, realistically. So our in-person sessions, we come back, we're doing 45-minute sessions, but the Zoom sessions are half an hour. And the reason we're doing 45 minutes is because we've obviously got the additional cleaning between the sessions. So luckily the hall here, the Masterton Centre that we use, they've invested in like a fogging machine. So we're able to fog the mats in between sessions, but it takes 20 minutes for it all to clear. So we have that 20-minute gap between our sessions. So that's working really well for us. So yeah, having kind of a decent structured lesson plan for the Monday, Tuesday and Thursday that we do on a regular basis has massively helped. 100% to do that. We've also had a new starter within the last week, which is amazing, to be honest. It's kind of given me a little bit of a boost of confidence that what we're doing is right, and that there's still people out there that actually want to start doing Taekwondo, even at the current even in the current climate, if you like. So that's been really, really good. And obviously the parent kind of called, and when we've gone through all of the information that we do and all the cleaning and all the rules that are in place, they were so impressed. They were so happy. So that's been really, really good for us, and I'm glad that's the case, really. Prior to that, I've probably during the whole of lockdown, we've had about 4 or 5 people inquire, of which I've gone back to, and they've not come back since we've come back to in-person lessons. So space has obviously been quite a big issue for quite a lot. So the majority of stuff that we're doing in our in-person sessions and from home on Zoom it's all stuff that we can do pretty much on the spot, or kind of face in one direction, change to the other direction, just a really small area, really small space, even to the point of like doing a warm-up with fake skipping ropes, which might sound a bit silly, but we're literally just kind of skipping with fake skipping ropes, doing doubles, crosses, all sorts of stuff on one leg, because some people, they've got skipping ropes, but if you're at home, you're going to start hitting the lights or the ceiling or whatever else. So just trying to put new different things in there to try and keep people a little bit motivated and change it up a little bit, so that the warm-ups are slightly different each session and things like that. Otherwise it gets a bit too kind of same. So yeah, imaginary skipping. Appreciate that we're quite lucky to get back into our venue. There's an awful lot of clubs out there that still aren't, and I just got contact the venues that you used to hire, and just obviously just keep putting forward the fact that, you know, all these cleaning methods and procedures are in place and stuff like that. We're quite lucky that our hall kind of wanted the local kind of community, if you like, to be able to get back to doing exercise and stuff like that. And we've been really lucky the fact that they've only opened to us so that we're allowed to leave all the mats down. So that's been a huge help. What else have I got? Okay, yes, about that. Okay, yeah, so even when coronavirus is finished, I can't see our Zoom sessions stopping. And I think that's one thing that's kind of come out of this, that I wish really I started doing this 2 or 3 years ago and running it on Zoom and put it on Facebook Lives and stuff like that, because it's just a massive bonus for a lot of people. We have a lot of people that are 30, 40 miles to the club to train. So for them to be able to attend during lockdown 4 sessions a week, 6 sessions a week, has been absolutely phenomenal and really, really useful for everyone, really. They've learned so much, and obviously everyone's basics and techniques and stuff like that have improved kind of tenfold, to be honest, where we've focused so much on it. So that's been a really good positive. We've also started utilising it for private sessions, so one-to-ones. And they've been going really, really well as well. So I've probably done about 15 or 20 one-to-ones with people during kind of the middle of the lockdown period. I've just started reintroducing those again now that I've got a bit more time. So yeah, it's been really, really good. I think the only thing for my guys and my club is the fact that where I've got a full-time job and I'm doing this kind of part-time in the evenings, as are a lot of other clubs. Amount of sessions that can be put on, if that makes sense, and the reduction in the class times are probably, I would have thought, going to start taking a toll at some point soon, because obviously we've reduced it down to 45 minutes and also reduced the amount of sessions. So we used to do like beginner, intermediate, advanced. Now we just do beginner and advanced, okay, and split it off a bit differently. So I think that's going to be the next kind of challenge for us, and start adding in additional sessions soon as well. But yeah, I think that's kind of all the notes that I've got. I'm not really sure what else I was supposed to cover. The one thing I have done is, if you've got, let's say you haven't done any Zoom sessions at all, and you're not sure how to set up Zoom or anything like that, to actually host a meeting. Obviously, everyone that's watching this now is on Zoom, so you kind of know that side of it, and joining a meeting and all the rest of it. But yeah, if you and you want to and need some advice doing it, I've created like a YouTube tutorial of how to sign up for Zoom, set it up, schedule your classes, and kind of manage the Zoom chat and channel, if you like, during the session. So I think the British Taekwondo, James is going to send out a link to that YouTube video for anyone else who's remotely interested in doing that hasn't done it already. So yeah, I think that's me done, James. Unless there's anything else that or any specific questions you guys have got, I'm happy to try and answer.
Well, thanks for that, Chris. It's as I'd said earlier on, if anybody has any questions during the course of this call, please chuck them on the chat function, and we'll try our best to answer them as we go. Likewise, Chris, if you see anything come flying in, if you can answer it in the live call, then please do. It always concerns me a little bit that a lot of people have not done a great deal with their members at all. You know, we got all closed down in March, but then whether it was because work commitments kicked in, or family commitments, or God forbid people were personally affected by the virus and have had loved ones that, you know, have either got it or, again, God forbid, lost loved ones because of it. But anecdotally, a lot of people are telling us that they closed their club and they've not done anything pretty much since. And it's always it's a concern that a lot of people rely on Taekwondo, not just necessarily for doing the martial arts and keeping fit and all of the other things, but they rely on it for their social lives. And I know we make light of it, but also mental health. You know, some people, the club environment is their social life. So this is one of the reasons why in the new normal with the Zoom, use of the Zoom space, or even just phone calls, or just keeping in touch with your members is so important. And where are we now? We're 7 months into this, and it looks as though we're going to have another couple of months as we count down into Christmas of exactly the same. Which is why we're kind of asking people like Chris just to run through again what the possibilities are, how successful it's been, and some clubs have been extremely successful actually recruiting new members, never mind retaining the existing ones. And BT has, wrapped insurance around the online training. We've opened up the friends and family insurance bracket so that people who don't even do Taekwondo can join in with some general fitness work in the background. So there's lots of different ways that you can keep engaging with your members. So again, Chris, thank you very much for just sharing that example and those stories. And if anybody on this call wants more details, then either throw something down on the chat or drop James or Chris a note directly and just find out exactly how he did it, how he continues with it. We did a session a couple of months back on technology and just the type of kit to use. And if you've not, you're not doing anything like this before, it can be quite daunting. But say we're all getting used to it. So we'll move on now. And James, if you would like to start presenting on, the lockdown measures and our understanding of what isn't permitted in the various regions of the UK at the moment. And then at the end, we'll open it out further to any questions that are on the chat. We'll answer as many as we can during this session. So are you there, James?
Yeah, I'm here, yeah.
Hand over to you. Thank you.
Cheers, Ian. Thanks. And thanks to Chris as well. For me, Chris's talk there went a bit bumpy in time. So one of the bits where it went a bit funny, the reception was a bit funny, was when he mentioned he's put together a tutorial video of how to basically access Zoom, how to set up an account, how to take bookings, anything in there for anybody who wants to basically use Zoom to set up classes. So Chris is going to send me the link for that, and I'll email it out to everyone to make sure that everybody's got sight of that. And please pass it on to anyone who's not already doing Zoom sessions, who might want to, or you think should be doing them. So as Ian says, there's quite a few people just not started the online stuff. And given the way these restrictions are going, backwards and forwards, online is probably the most surefire way to keep your members active just now. Just let me share my screen and I'll get into my presentation. Everybody see that okay? 2 seconds. So thanks to everybody for joining us tonight. As Ian said, I'm going to run through the Home Nations government guidance and rules for sport, which, as you're all aware, are not only different in each home nation, but they're starting to give stuff different names and they're coming out with different tiers. And yeah, so it's a bit of a nightmare, but I've been going through it. I've made as much sense of it as I can. And please, if you spot something that I've got wrong or that BT's missed, or any of the advice changes between us releasing the information, please get in touch and let me know, because it is an ever-changing situation and we obviously want to pass out the most accurate information. So we'll start off with Wales, seeing as they've introduced the firebreaker lockdown. Just one example of the wording. England are potentially calling it a circuit breaker. Wales have called it a firebreaker. England have got test and trace. Scotland have got test and protect. So yeah, just to keep things confusing for us. So in Wales, from the 23rd of October, as you can see, they introduced the firebreaker. So all gyms, leisure centres, etc., they've all closed. No indoor classes can take part. This is the strictest conditions in place. That's why I started with Wales. So they've already gone ahead and basically put theirs in place. No indoor activity at all during the 4-week lockdown. So this is expected to finish on the 9th of November. Obviously, nearer that time, Wales will do some announcements on how they expect to come out of that. And basically, as Chris was saying, as Ian was saying, the advice is get on and do some online classes, even if you just do it once a week, just to keep your members engaged, keep them on side, keep yourself active, and keep the communications going. So Wales for outdoor classes. Can everybody see these slides, yeah? Outdoor classes.
James, sorry, just the first slide is the intro still. I think you might need to click it on one.
Yeah, 2 seconds. I'm not sure what's going on with this.
When you've got presenter view, that's the way it works. I think you're going to have to get rid of presenter view if you want us to see the slides. It's the 3 dots below the first slide. I've tried this before, and even with 2 screens, it ends up showing the presenter view and not the actual slides.
Where is that about?
So below the big slide, there's 3 dots. So you've got the dual view, yeah. You've got the next slide on the right and the current slide in front of it. Below that, you've got 3 dots. If you click on that, it says close presenter view or something. Now you got it.
Right. So you can all see that, yeah.
Now I can see the actual slides, yeah.
Yeah. So Wales outdoor exercise. This is where we were at. Sorry, guys. There's the first slide. Basically, just what I covered in brief. So everything in Wales just about is closed. What they're calling a firebreak lockdown to get control of the virus. Wales have jumped in first and done this. We expect England to do it soon, but for some reason the government's holding off with that just now. So outdoor exercise in Wales, basically nothing much has, well, since the firebreak started, nothing much has changed, but from before, basically, people can only exercise, you're still permitted to exercise outdoors, but only alone or with members of your own household. You're not allowed household mixing. So basically, coaches can't meet up with clients and take even PT sessions outdoor. People are only allowed to exercise on their own. So again, highlights the importance and the reasons to get started online with the Zoom sessions. I'll send Chris's link out to everyone following the conference so that you can get a basic tutorial on how to get set up on that. So from Wales, we'll move into Northern Ireland next because they've got the next strictest measures in place. So 4 weeks basically from the 16th of October. Northern Ireland have put restrictions in place that there's basically a ban on indoor sport unless it's elite sports. As you can see, there are no indoor sport of any kind other than elite level. Now, I know we got a question from Eddie about pads earlier on the chat, and that is basically what elite level is. It's at the GB National Centre. So even if you're an elite athlete in Northern Ireland, you're not in the elite environment of the National Centre. So basically, you can't take part in training activities indoors with coaches because it's not the correct environment. So basically no BT classes can take place and clubs should look to deliver as much as they can online, even if they just get started, as I said, and it's one class a week. It's still better than nothing. It means you're engaging with your members. They'll possibly keep the membership going, potentially signing up new members, and it'll give you a whole new angle to deliver your classes from, even when the lockdown conditions ease again. A mixture of online and face-to-face will be the future, I think. So Northern Ireland outdoor classes. So again, these can take place, but what they've done, they've cut the limit from 30 people down to 15 people, which does include the coach. So that would be 14 clients and a coach. Everybody's socially distanced, still within the rules. And basically just encourage everybody, all the coaches, just risk assess your activities. Let your members know how to get there safely, how to take part safely. I doubt, given this weather, there's going to be many outdoor sessions taking place. But yeah, if you do any outdoor sessions, make sure you've done a proper risk assessment. You've communicated with your members. And one of the crucial things we need to stress to everybody, online classes or whatever, any face-to-face classes, is you keep an accurate register of everybody who's attending any face-to-face classes, just in case someone tests positive for the virus and you need to start letting Test and Trace know who's at the class and when. So that's a theme that's going to come up throughout, basically, as use your BT risk assessment implementation plan and communicate it to all your members, and how crucial it is to keep an accurate register of attendees. Next, we've got England indoor sessions. So as it stands, no matter which level it's at, so Sport England, DCMS and the government have obviously come to an agreement where exercise classes can continue. Now the word here is organised exercise classes, as you can see that, which means through an NGB. So we are classed as organised exercise classes. So these can still go ahead, and basically they'll continue within the British Taekwondo return to training guidance. So again, you need to get your facility risk assessment, and then you need to do your own risk assessment on your activities, and then you have to do an implementation plan to implement your activities safely within that environment. And all these details, the implementation plan, etc., how to get your members there safely, how to get them into your facility safely, how to do safe activities, how to get them out safely, should be communicated to the members before anybody shows up. And we had Chris mention earlier about people booking sessions. So he's only got 10 spots within his gym now that everything's socially distanced. You saw the nice squares of the mats. There was areas for walking in between where the coach can go and assess people. So whatever your facility is set up like, you need to communicate this to your members so they can get there safely, take part safely, and get home safely. And it's crucial with the booking as well. Chris is booking mainly for numbers, but it's also to make sure you've got everyone's most up-to-date contact information and record exactly when they were at the sessions. It's within the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've had, I reckon, about 6 people now, 6 coaches, get in touch to say someone within their class has tested positive for the virus, not at the class, but someone who has been attending classes. What do they need to do? Basically, all you need to do is keep your facility clean, keep everybody 2 meters apart, keep everybody's names on a register with their most up-to-date contact details, which should be available on their hub profile. So you can encourage your members to keep their hub profiles up to date with the latest information, just in case, on the off chance, Test and Trace would like to get in touch with anyone. So if they would basically contact you as a coach, and then you would have to have the members' details handy, anyone who's at a class where they may have been put at risk. What this highlights is the importance of keeping everybody 2 meters apart and keeping the facility clean. The advice to all the coaches is you don't have to do anything just now, just keep doing what you're doing, keep people 2 meters apart, keep the facility clean, keep everybody's contact details, and you've basically fulfilled your duties of keeping everyone safe. So the class numbers, as you're aware, depend on the size of the class. You just saw Chris's setup, which was excellent. Not every class will have spaces for the coach to walk between. They may just do the whole class from the front. And again, you'll see this bit about using your risk assessment implementation plan, communicate it to members, and keep accurate registers. Make sure everybody's got the most up-to-date details, contact details on the hub. England outdoor, as it was, again, due to the weather, there's not going to be much outdoor activity taking place, I wouldn't think, for Taekwondo practitioners. It's as it was. You can have up to 30 people, everyone's socially distanced, that are from different households. So the next maximum class number is still 30. Same applies, risk assessment, the activities, communicate to your members and keep accurate registers. Next on, we've got Scotland. Scotland have probably made theirs the most complicated out of everyone, to be honest. Just going through it and trying to make sense of it, Scotland have introduced different, now I know there's some mention of age groups in England, but for organised classes that's not the case. So Scotland has got different allowances basically for different age groups, and the most affected part in Scotland is the Central Belt. So from Edinburgh right across to Ayrshire, basically all that Falkirk, etc., that's all the Central Belt. They're the highest infection rates, so they've brought in additional measures. So basically, I'll start off with the clubs outside the Central Belt. There's indoor contact and non-contact. 2 seconds. Permitted with no social distancing for participants aged 11 years or younger. This is one of the confusing bits in Scotland that makes it a bit more difficult to understand, because they've split it into 3 age categories. So for those aged 12 or older, indoor non-contact classes are permitted with everyone from a different household, socially distanced, which is 2 metres, and the class size depends on the size of the hall. So this is for clubs outside of the Central Belt. So outdoor guidance still permits up to 29 people, including a coach, to take part in non-contact activity with mitigating measures in place, which would be managed class sizes, and any contact is minimal. So, and if you're going to put people in groups, you put them in pairs so that they're not mixing with too many people in the contact sessions. So that is, outdoor sessions in Scotland can be contact for the duration of the activity. Again, use a BT risk assessment implementation plan, and it's crucial to keep the accurate record of attendees and their contact details. So that's for clubs outside of the Central Belt. Things get a bit stricter on the next one, which is clubs who are in the Central Belt. Age 11 and younger, indoor and outdoor contact classes, they reckon children are pretty safe from the virus, transmitting it and catching it. So they're allowed up to 30 participants, ages 12 to 17. They can do non-contact indoors with everyone from a different household, socially distanced at all times. And again, class size dependent on the area, everybody within their own 3 by 3 metre area. 12 to 17. Contact classes are permitted outdoors with no social distancing, so anyone can do contact classes outdoors if they're not in the Central Belt. Within the Central Belt, 12 to 17 years, 17 years and younger basically can do contact training. If you're 18 or older, it's non-contact classes outdoors and there's no indoor activity for clubs within the Central Belt. And the same rules apply, risk assessment, implementation plan, communicate to your members and keep an up-to-date register. The last one from Scotland is they're about to enter the new 5-tier system on Monday. From reading up this week, the web pages have now been taken down. No matter which tier you were in, organised exercise and sport, organised sports sessions were still allowed, exercise sessions. Those pages have been taken down, so anyone from Scotland, bear with us, and as soon as those pages are updated, we'll update the guidance. So as it stood, I went through the guidance, the provisional guidance, and basically the organised sport sessions and exercise were exempt, no matter which tier your area was in. And as it says there, we should have a clearer idea by Monday by the time the new system comes into play. There's a couple of links on this slide for anyone that wants them. Look at local COVID levels. That's the page I've been looking at, which is still to be updated, and the Scottish Government website on COVID-19. So that new 5-tier system, which is obviously a bit more in depth than England's 3-tier system, just to keep us on our toes, comes in on Monday. And now I'm going to finish off with some advice on government support that's available. There's just been a big announcement about new Sport England funding being made available, which I've done a post on the website. I've also got a wee bit here for you as well. So the government support just now, the only support they're offering now that I could find was the Self-Employed Income Support Scheme, and external funding via national funding bodies, which I'll get into in a second. So Self-Employed Income Support Scheme is as it was basically. It's just go on the government website, have a look up for financial support, and it's in there. You'll see the link for it. Anybody who doesn't qualify or is unemployed, you can claim the benefits basically on the site as well. So that'd be good to get that started if you've got no income. So the first one, I'm going to start with England, funding support through Sport England. The 3 funds that they've just announced that have got new conditions attached are the Small Grants Fund, the Community Asset Fund, and the Active Together Fund. So if you've not read the post on the website, the small grants is £300 to £10,000, and the basis of it is to help with projects addressing the challenges COVID's caused for people. So all of them have got roughly the same application criteria, so I've included that at the bottom, what is the standard criteria. The Community Asset Fund is a bit more money, so anything above £10,000 up to £50,000 would be the Community Asset Fund. It's for a different cause though, so that's to help clubs open and adapt places that allow people to take part in sport and physical activity. So if you are looking to do any of those things, have a look at the post on the website. I've put together an information sheet for you as well on there, summarising each of the funds, all the criteria, what you need to meet, who they'll fund, who they won't fund, etc. So make sure you have a wee look at that. The Active Together Fund is a bit different. So if you don't qualify for each of the first 2, Active Together is a crowdfunding basically, and they'll match it. Sport England will match your funding up to a maximum of £10,000. So if you raise £20,000, they can match you up to 50%, up to a maximum of £10,000 basically, and that's to support organisations that are struggling through the COVID crisis. So as you can see here, the criteria. Let's change the text. So you must be a not-for-profit organisation. I know loads of our clubs qualified for that. This is in England only, by the way. Clubs must have a bank account in the name of your club or organisation. Your project must be ready to start within 6 weeks and must meet the criteria and be aimed at specific target groups. I can send out my previous funding presentation that I did that's got some good notes on it, and it explains all about how your project has to be aimed at the target groups within that fund, and what you should be looking for, what bits you should be reading up on before you send your application in. Because you need to highlight the right groups that you're helping. Most of our clubs already do all the things Sport England's asking for, and they help all the target groups, Sport England and all the sporting bodies actually, not just Sport England. They already do these things. They're maybe just not used to putting it down on paper and basically selling themselves. So anybody that wants to put an application in and needs a bit of advice or guidance, or you want your application vetted, I'm more than happy to go over that for you. So that's the Sport England bit. And you can get more information on Sport England website. As I say, I've summarised it and put it in a document on the BT website on the main news page, basically, if you wanted to go and have a look at that. In Scotland, they've got the awards for all. It's basically the same as the small grants, but it's in Scotland. It's £300 to 10,000. Not-for-profit community organisations, social enterprises, or even smaller organisations based on their level of income, which it doesn't state the level of income. So if you're a club in Scotland, you can maybe contact Sport Scotland and find out exactly what is and isn't allowable. And basically the fund is to bring people together to build strong communities and relationships and improve places and spaces for communities. All of our clubs do that basically, so it's just a case of knowing how to sell yourself when you're applying for these things. The Sports Facilities Fund is up to 100,000. Again, you can see the criteria here. It's for organisations that help people get involved in sport and physical activity. It has an impact on participation or progression. Priority groups, here we go. And that's basically to do up or to enhance or get a facility set up basically to start running sessions. So that's up to £100,000 they offer for that. And they're the main two Sports Scotland funds. The criteria for them hasn't changed much since the COVID crisis started. That's why the Sport England ones are a bit different. They've changed their criteria to be more COVID specific. The Sports Scotland ones haven't really done that, but I'm sure the criteria when you apply would be based around what you're doing for people affected by COVID. Sport Wales, they've got the community chest, which is up to 1,500 for sports clubs looking to increase participation and or improve standards. Development grant, just make this text white. It's quite. Development grant is anything above that up to 25,000 basically, so 1,501 to 25,000. Develop facilities, provide equipment or for coach education. And the other one is a place for sports. That's like the facilities fund in England and Scotland. They're all very similar because they all come from government basically. Most governments in the UK have got the same target groups, and the funds are roughly the same. Criteria is all very similar as well. Although in Wales, you just have to be a registered sports organisation with proper club structure, which would mean a committee and a bank account. So you must have a club bank account in the name of your organisation. That's another criteria. And the funding can only be for new projects. And last but not least, Northern Ireland. So they've got the Sports Hardship Fund. That's up to £2,000, and reading that today, even organisations that were awarded the previous award of £2,000 to keep their club going, they can still apply for up to £1,000 of this new wave of funding. And there's basically what it's for clubs experiencing financial hardship in any of these areas, which I imagine would be quite a few clubs. So key points to remember for funding: without a proper club structure, your chances of accessing funding are very limited. And if you're a for-profit organisation or a business, you can write off 99% of funds that are available out there, especially from the funding bodies, Sport England, Sport Scotland, Sport Wales and Sport Northern Ireland. Research the funding amounts and the criteria before you plan your project. So how much do you need? What is your project? Have a look at what the funds are for, and then pick which one your project would fit into. You don't just sort of apply randomly. You need to do your research. You need to do a fair bit of reading. again, I've got the old, not the old, my previous funding presentation I did, which I'm happy to share with everyone. That's got a load of good information in it. Only put relevant information on your application to help them make their decisions. So a lot of clubs have put down how they've created so many like national and British champions, and the funder's not really interested in that. That's an athlete fund. So they're only interested in what you're doing for the community, how you benefit in the area where your club is based, especially if it's classed as underprivileged or deprived. And make sure when you're doing an application, all your best information goes at the top. So there was some applications previously where there was certain questions and you were like 3 paragraphs in before they'd answered the question. And some of the best information in their answer was actually at the bottom, in the bottom 2 or 3 paragraphs, which answer the question first, have your best information that's most relevant to the fund and that question at the top. And then any blurb can go underneath. So if they only read 2 or 3 paragraphs, they've got all your best stuff basically. And all the other stuff that they might not bother reading is stuck at the bottom. That's it from me. I think we're on to the Q&A. Is Ian still available? Loads of questions there, I can see.
Sorry, James, I'm busy
That's
typing
all right.
away.
Don't worry.
Typing away and answering the questions that are on the chat. I've just answered one there from Alan about the home nations. If there's funding applications or grant applications to Sport Scotland, Sport Wales, Sport Northern Ireland, and you come across an issue around recognition, please flag that to us immediately, because we've had this a couple of times and pointed it out to Sport England, Sport Wales, Sport Northern Ireland, Sport Scotland, and each time they've went, oh yeah, you're right, sorry, and it's fine. But if anybody says it isn't, you immediately come back to us and we'll deal with it. It's a wider issue that we're dealing with the sports governing bodies. So anybody that's a member of BT that is applying for any of these grants is eligible. End of story. And it doesn't matter whether it's Sport England, Sport Scotland, Sport Northern Ireland, Sport Wales. So can we apply again, says Richard. Why not? What we found the first time around was, it was called something different, wasn't it, James? This fund.
Yeah, the initial one they brought out was basically just to see clubs through the crisis, which was it's in England only, and that was a community emergency fund. That's now been closed. The applications went through the roof, and some of the funding was excellent. So now what they've done is they've got their 3 regular funds, and they've changed the name. They've put at the start of it "return to activity," basically. Yeah. And they've changed the criteria to be more COVID specific. Right. So
to answer your question, Richard,
yes, you can apply. It's a different fund.
Yeah, absolutely apply again, because very simply, as James has explained, it's actually a different fund. They've called it by a different name. So even if you did apply before, that'll have been the emergency fund if you were successful. So yeah, why not crack on? If you weren't successful, then some of the criteria is quite similar, isn't it, James? So if you did put an application in previously and that was kicked back for whatever reason, main reason was they ran out of money, I'd try again, have another go.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Ian. Read the criteria, what they will and won't fund first, and if you meet that, go for it. Yeah, apply for any one of the funds. But read up on the document I've done, which says what they will fund, what they won't fund, which is basically, I've copied and pasted most of it from the sports websites. but I've also summarised some of it and put some of my own tips and stuff in there as well.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's really helpful. Sajid is asking, who has determined whether we can or can't do pad work, and what's the reasoning for this? It's very, very simple. The government, which we're terming as Department of Culture, Media and Sport and Public Health England, and the similar bodies in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, are basically saying that anything that moves closer than the 2 metre social distancing is not permitted. And that's for all of the combat sports or individual sports. The only types of sports that have had exemptions for this, or they've had specific rules for this, are the team sports, like rugby, football, etc. Extremely frustrating. And we do have a very clear return to training plan, which is phase 1, which is where we are at the moment, which is class-based training. That's it. Phase 2 is handheld pads and other limited contact type activity. To be honest, we were quite close in getting that through DCMS, where they would say, yep, you can move to phase 2. But then, of course, we've turned around, as I said at the beginning, and marched back into that dark tunnel of a more restrictive lockdown. So they basically said, no, we're not going to give approval to move to phase 2. So we're stuck on this phase 1, which is fully socially distanced. It's got nothing to do with reasoning or anything like that. It is very simply the government are saying, for individual sports like ourselves, they will not permit anything that has contact. And we're only able to operate on this exercise class-based methodology where that's it. That's all we can get away with. But as as someone's just pointed out, that's different in Scotland. You're right. I don't have an answer for that, but that's very simply because in Scotland they are putting out different rules for children. So if that's what they say, that's what they say. I don't have. It's not us that's making that. It's not that we're not making that distinction in British Taekwondo. We're not over-interpreting it either. We're just, as James went through in detail there, we're just letting people know what the rules are in the particular home nations. And now it's gone on to different tiers, and it's also gone on to local lockdowns. I'll give you a perfect example of how absurd it is. Last week, South Yorkshire, Sheffield, and some of the other areas, they moved to tier 3, and the Sheffield local council said no training whatsoever. So of course we had people like Daniel and Stuart asking us, well, what are we supposed to do that? And it turned out that it was Sheffield local council making a mistake and publishing something that was not even a Westminster government rule. So it is contradictory. It's extremely frustrating, and we're in the same boat as everybody else, and trying our best. Sometimes I feel sorry for James. A couple of weeks ago, a lot of you might have noticed that we posted something on our website on a Tuesday afternoon at 3:00. James had spent all day going through the guidance that was on .gov websites. Unbeknownst to the poor guy, somebody in the government was right behind him, changing it all. So we published something at 3:00 on a Tuesday afternoon, and by 3:30, it was wrong. So what do you do? Again, Sajid saying, can we throw in pad work in phase 1 then? It doesn't work like that, Sajid. We're not making the decision here. the government are saying quite clearly that our sport, along with a lot of other sports, judo, wrestling, boxing, to name, a lot of the combat sports, we're not allowed to do anything in England, I'm talking about specifically, less than 2 meters. So it's not about us deciding that, we'll put handheld pad work in phase 1. That's not how it works. They lay down the guidelines, which at the moment are saying 2 meter distancing. We then have to put in place what we can and can't do within that guidelines. And obviously handheld pads, you can't do that unless you have a very long stick. I've seen a couple of very industrious coaches who've taped some kick pads on the end of big sticks and things, and it's an interesting way of doing it. If it's safe and there's no health and safety issues with that, then crack on. Jason's mentioned, but not all instructors are sticking to the rules. That's the problem. Again, Jason, you are 100% right on that. The thing is, anybody that is breaching the rules and not sticking to the rules is actually doing it with no insurance whatsoever. Because our insurers, along with every other sport that's out there, if people are operating and taking no notice and they're operating outside of the rules that we're not laying down, as I say, it's the government that's laying this down, immediately the insurers will say, well, you're not abiding by the government and your national governing body's own regulations, so your insurance is invalid. So I don't know what more we can say on this particular subject. It's very difficult for us to be the COVID police, if that's the right, social distancing police, if that's the expression. If people are prepared to put their members and students' health at risk like that, and they're just for the sake of being able to hold a pad, or God forbid, we've not had it yet. We've not had an outbreak where it's just somebody within one of these super spreader events, if that's the that's the expression. The only other way is you can report it to the local, I think it's the police. You can get on the website and report breaches of the government's regulations. And like I say, anybody that's doing this is doing it without insurance. More, negligence insurance, particularly from a coach's point of view. That's quite an interesting comment there from Richard. It's a good one there. If the one area where a lot of people have explored this quite well is the same family group. People that live in the same household, they can mix within the club, just like they can in any other setting outdoors. If they live together, they can train together. If they're training together, they can hold pads together. Richard suggested, what about having parents holding the pads? In theory, yes, but you as a coach would need to give those people training from a health and safety perspective on how to hold that pad correctly, and you just need to evidence that. But that's quite a creative way of doing it. Yeah, if you want to do pad work and there's nobody in the same household as that child there, but the parent is there, then you can get the parent to hold the pad. The difficulty that we found with some of these ideas as well, of course, is no spectators, or, as Kevin's just piled in, you need a bigger space around them. You need, here we go, Jason's jumped in. If we follow the guidance we're putting out, you need to keep reducing the risk, and it starts getting very problematic. if you're starting to bring in loads and loads of external people to hold pads, etc., 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 and you're also exceeding the number of people in your unit, in your space. As you can see, I've opened up a can of worms there, or should I say you have, Richard. So it's not as straightforward as you think, which is why, from our perspective, British Taekwondo's perspective, we've not been advising people to do this because of all the reasons you've just seen in the chat room there. You can't have that many people in. You're increasing the risk. You've got people moving around in the venue, and it's hard enough trying to keep a lid on, the maximum number. You want as many people as you can in your class training, which is what the advice we've put out, which is, look, just get people operating at 2 meters gap. We had a question earlier on about, is it 2 meters or 3 by 3? If you do the planning on your, in your gyms, it's the same thing. You need 2 meters in front, to the sides, behind. So if you're stood on a mat, you've got a mat a meter in front of you, a mat a meter behind, and one either side. So that's a 3 by 3. If you've got a different way, or you've got a different setup of doing that, as long as you're finding the correct way of following the government guidelines, which is when exercising, people must be 2 meters apart. And there's some interesting things there. Sharon said, sent all my students home with a kick target so they can train at home. Doing videos, family students, on how to hold the pad for them to kick. Again, very, very creative. You're giving health and safety advice of how to hold the pad. So as a coach, you're discharging your duty. And you can evidence that you have taught this person how to hold a pad. And then, as Sharon's doing there, you've got people going home, kicking the pads. So there are different ways of doing it, but we've got to keep the main focus, at the front of our minds. This is a horrible virus, and I don't know what we're up to now, 40-odd thousand people. Look at what's happening in America at the moment. It's awful. And what we don't want is, as we go into Christmas, the last thing any of us want is a Taekwondo club ending up on some television program somewhere saying this is a spreader event, and because it will impact on us all. Honestly, it will. And by all means, if people are abusing that, then please let us know. We'll have a word with these people. We are doing that. We're anybody that is proved to be abusing the government guidelines, we're speaking to them. We're reminding them of the danger that they're putting themselves in, both from a health perspective and they're operating without their insurance. So please, if we can, just keep your people safe. Other things that we're doing, I just went through a little bit of a list just before we close this session. We are working with other sports groups. I'm part of, it's called a combat sport group. And I sit along with the chief executives of judo, of wrestling, of karate, of England boxing. And we're lobbying these people as much as we possibly can, DCMS, public health, all the sports councils, just to sort of say, look, we are operating extremely safely. We're doing it well. And the vast majority of BT clubs are operating that way. We are trying to get them to understand that it's not just Jade Jones kicking somebody in the head. We can do a lot more. The martial arts side, we've got class-based activity, pad kicking, and we know we can move to phase 2 with safety measures in place. I was talking to Eddie earlier on, saying, well, why are they doing this in GB and we can't do it in the clubs? Well, the simple reason is that in GB, it's one location in a high performance environment where they have exemptions. And if we say, well, okay, we'll do the same thing, but we'll do it in all 600 BT clubs, that the way that the Public Health England and others think is, well, you can't do that, because it's opening it out to the whole nation, whereas when it's happening in GB, it's only one location. Yeah, and as Richie's saying, the GB players, and all the staff, they get tested, I don't know, it's every day or every other day. It's a different environment. But the main thing, regardless of the measures that they're taking place in the National Centre, it's the fact that it's a high-performance programme and it's one location. Whereas if we say, well, yeah, let's all do that in the clubs, it opens it up to hundreds and hundreds of locations. And at that point, trying to convince government that that's the same thing, as much as it pains me, and I'm trying every which way to try and get them to understand. It's just the way it is, and it's across all sports as well, I have to say. So just from my point to wrap up, please, as some of my colleagues on this chat are saying now, just stick to the rules. It's not worth the headache, as Siv has just said there. If something badly goes wrong, we're doing well. We're trying to keep our people safe. We're trying to keep them informed. We're trying to educate them. We're trying to give them a bit of a social life. It's good for people's mental health as well. If we can do all of those things, we have our part to play. And let's see if we can get to Christmas and keep engaged with all our people as much as we possibly can. We are doing an awful lot behind the scenes. We're planning for a return. We're talking about major events for next year. It's been absolutely disappointing and gutting that we've had to cancel this year's events, but you hopefully understand why we've left it as long as we possibly could. We've got a lot of all the new departments rolling out. We, across the sport, across PUMSE, across all the referees, and you hear more and more and more about that. In the coming weeks, we are developing a massive new strategy for the organisation. We've been doing that for the last 6 months. New products, new services, a new website, tiered membership, a new hub system. We're going to unveil a lot of that at the annual general meeting, which is on the 5th of December. And we're going to do a load of workshops. We'll be making some announcements next week about that. So, we're like everybody else. We're just absolutely desperate to get back into the gyms and into the halls. Sajid was asking, how frequently does the consideration for phase 2 happen? Where we are right now, to be honest, Sajid, a couple of weeks ago, we turned around and we marched back into the tunnel. The darker tunnel. We all thought we were coming out of that, and the Department of Culture, Media and Sport and others, they're talking about more, as James said earlier, we're talking about more lockdown measures, not relaxing them. So we've just got to work with what we've got at the moment. That doesn't say that we stop lobbying and trying to tell them and explain, this is our phase 2, we can do this, we can do that. We are just putting our hands up and saying we give up and yeah, okay, we'll stick to phase 1. We're continually asking those questions, but there isn't at the moment a set period where they reconsider phase 2. It just depends what the virus is doing, doesn't it, and where we are in terms of the government and their decisions around public health, rather than whether we can return to some kind of phase 2 training. It's where we are, really. So what we'll do, I think we've verbally answered a lot of these questions that are popping up on the chat. James and I will go through them and we will answer each one. So we'll go back to you and make sure we answer every very one. But It is frustrating. It is, you know, unprecedented. I know we keep saying this. As Phil's just mentioned there, the world numbers have just exceeded 500,000 infections a day. And we've got a lot of people who are dead in this country. Worldwide, it's over 1 million now. And what we've got in the next 6 to 8 weeks, I'm praying that it's, you know, with the learnings of what happened in March, April and May, that people are, you know, the NHS and things like that are able to treat it better and are well prepared. And you know, I'm the same as everybody else. You've got elderly parents, and you're just praying that it's just we all get through this. So I'm sorry if we haven't answered every single point. We'll go through these ones one by one, and if we can answer them, and we'll publish them as well, so people have an idea. But just to close off, you know, thanks to Chris and thanks to James for pulling those bits and pieces together. Please look out next week for some of the comments that we'll be making on the website about the AGM and some of the workshops. And if you're keen to understand what our plans are for next year, come and join those workshops. And we'll be doing them on Zoom. Obviously, we're not. Again, that's another casualty. We won't be able to do the AGM in person. So thank you very much for your time, and we'll answer all these questions that we haven't answered today and put them on there. Is there anything else you wanted to add, James, or have we covered everything that we were going to today?
Just about everything. I forgot to cover in the tiered system in England, although exercise can continue as normal. Anyone who's in the very high or tier 3 can't travel. You're not supposed to travel into or out of a tier 3. So where the club inquire, a lot of the members need to travel into their bit, which is tier 3 from a tier 2. And that's it. Traveling in or out of a tier 3 is not permitted for things like exercise. So just bear that in mind.
Great. Well, thank you again to the speakers. We are doing some Home Nation specific sessions next week, I believe, James. So, you know, England, and we're doing them for each home nation as well, including England. So we've got 4 of these types of sessions next week. So if you get the opportunity to join us for those, usually they're a little bit smaller and a bit more informal, and we can do some live chat if there's not too many people on the calls. But let's keep talking. You know, it's keep sharing, if you've got some great ideas like Sharon was putting up there, please share and let us know as well, and we'll get them out there. We're all trying to make the best of a really bad situation. So let's get through this together, and keep strong, keep safe, and look after yourself. Thanks very much, and bye-bye. Thank you.